Hello, everybody. My name is Christoph. I'm the managing director of Sunday. Sunday is a hyper-casual publisher and developer from Hamburg, Germany. We develop games in-house with several product teams, but also we publish games from external partner studios. And today's talk is titled 7 Easy Tips to Increase Your Studio's Output and Quality. And that is a compilation of all the things that we have learned in the recent year, how to have a really efficient game production pipeline. So let's get started. And I first want to address the target audience of this talk. So this talk is mainly targeted at small to medium-sized hyper-casual development teams who have like one or more years of experience. So you already had a lot of prototypes in the pipeline. You know where the problems are. You have failed a couple of times, maybe even landed your first hit. Who knows? But actually, I believe this bundle of tips is really relevant for everybody, no matter what stage you're in, how many games you have already developed. I think everyone can take something out of this today. So the first step that we're going to look at is before you actually get started with an idea, right? And you usually start with the ideation phase. So you start developing concepts together by yourself or together with your team. And this is also one of the most critical points in the development stage. So the most important thing there is first that you really understand the market that you're in. And this slide is stolen from another talk that my colleague Andre recently held. Also, I can highly recommend that. But this is a very nice chart explaining how you can think about the market and how you can think about how to position your idea in the market, right? So on this graph here, on the y-axis, you're seeing the potential of the game, so from low to high. And on the x-axis, you see how challenging it is to develop it. So left side, the potential payoff, like what can come out of it for you financially. And on the right side is how hard it is really to crack this concept. So on the bottom left, you're seeing all the clones. That means probably you have, look at the top charts already, and then you see a game which is like on there for many weeks already, and just think to yourself, why don't I have a game like this, right? Why don't I just copy a game like this? But usually these are the concept that don't really take off. So I personally have never seen a cloned game that is reaching more than 10% of the audience of the original. So there is already someone with the exact same game in the market who's taking all the attention, who's taking all the traffic, all the installs. And this is definitely something we cannot recommend. Like the potential there to actually make this game profitable is super, super low. Yes, it's an easy thing to do, but from my experience so far, you should focus your time much more on something that has a much higher potential and a much higher payoff also. So then on the upper left, you're seeing the so-called gold mines, and that is combined with another approach of looking at the market. So yes, you can look at what's currently trending and what's on the top charts, but you should try a variation of this, right? And I think what we have seen at the beginning of 2021 is this female runner concept. This is like the perfect example for a gold mine, right? So I think it got really kickstarted with High Heels from Rolex. Then everybody tried their variation of a female runner and tried to really reinvent the whole runner genre with a new look on it, with a new theme, trying out new mechanics that fit really well into this category. And we have seen some very successful games coming out of this, right? I think still Rolex is with the highest, one of the really most successful, if not the most successful. But there were a lot of others that were really successful in mining this gold mine and hopping onto the trend. The problem there is you need to be quite fast about it, right? So if a trend is coming up, you only have a couple of days or weeks to really jump in onto it. When you already see 3 or 4 of your competitors doing similar things like the original one, then it's probably too late to also get into it. So yeah, this is really more about the speed, really identifying a trend quickly once it's popping up, and then a really fast execution. But you also need to have a good twist about your game, right? So otherwise it's just a clone. When you do exactly the same thing, you should at least twist something around in the game that it's 30% different than the original. In reintroducing a new mechanic, combining it with something else that you've seen in a successful game before. Then in the lower right, you see the so-called gambles. So this is a project that is super difficult to crack, so super challenging to do, and also has quite a low potential. And usually these are hyper-casual games that look more like indie game styles, and things that have never been tried before, really. And there's also no relationship to anything that has been successful on the market so far. So these things can work. Yes, technically, anything can work on the market. You can always get lucky, but you have to be sure that there are certain things, if they have never done before, or like at least there is no real comparable project or no comparable game that has been successful so far, it's difficult to do. So you can always try this. It's a long shot, but I think we should much more focus on the fourth category, which are the so-called moonshot projects. And of course, that's what we want to be. It's a high challenge. These are really difficult to get, but the potential is also super, super high. And these are usually the trendsetters, right? And the way how to get to those games is usually by combining two completely new things that have never been combined before, right? So there's still, you are looking at concepts that are validated on the market, but you combine them in a very new and very different way. Like, for example, the female runner theme, right? So there were a lot of runners before, but nothing really with this perspective on it. And I think this is a very analytical approach to game development. That means, in theory, you can just create like a big table of different genres and combine them with different themes and just see what has never been done before. But as long as you take something that has already been successful on the market and combine it with something else that has been successful, there's a really high potential behind it that this can work. But of course, moonshot products are also not easy. You have to be aware of that. That's not something easy to do. It's not a gold mine, but if you crack it, then this is the big hit, so to say. All right. Then the second tip that I can give you is avoid classical gaming themes. And you have heard this from everybody before, probably, right? So don't do pixel art. Avoid zombie themes. Don't do fantasy because it just doesn't convert well. And everybody says this, right? No matter who you talk to, every publisher says that, everybody in the industry just reiterates this. But I want to highlight a little bit, like, where is this coming from? Why are people actually saying this? Because this is not very intuitive, right? Most people who work in hyper-casual development also play games themselves. So they know, for example, the Steam charts, right? The Steam top charts, or the iOS top grossing charts as an example. And there you see a lot of games that look like those games that you're not supposed to build, right? But they're still super successful. Those games are grossing millions, right? And they work on the market. So why shouldn't we do them in a hyper-casual? Why is everybody advising against them? Although we clearly see there are a lot of companies earning a lot of money with them. And the key behind that is really understanding how hyper-casual games work in the mobile ad network platforms. So we have to look at your primary distribution platform are really the ad networks. That's where you showcase your game. It's not so much the app stores, right? Those are just for downloading the game actually, but nobody's discovering your game through the stores. People are really discovering your game through the networks. And what you see here on the left are the different groups that you can reach through those networks. So in theory, you can reach everyone who had a phone, or at least everyone who uses Facebook, TikTok, or plays another game that has ads in it. And then inside of that, you have your core gamer audience. So these are the people that are really into playing those games that look very gamey, that have a pixel art theme, because it reminds them of games that they in their youth, right? So there's always this nostalgic feeling. But everybody else who didn't have this core gamer experience when they were younger, they don't really relate so much to something that looks like Terraria, right? So why should it invoke any feeling in them of nostalgia or like, oh, I want to try this out, if they didn't grow up with these games, which is still the majority of people who have a phone and who are our potential reachable audience, right? And so most ad monetized games seem to have a lifetime value of around 30 cents to $1 per user. Of course, there are always games that do better, but when you look at the majority, like 90% of the games that are on the market are somewhere in this area of around 30 cents of $1 lifetime value in the US, right? While a lot of the games that monetize through in-app purchases, they can reach a lifetime value of $15 plus. So this is a very different category, right? And these in-app purchase-heavy games try to target the core gamer audience because these are the people who are really spending, right? Those are the guys where gaming is their hobby, and they're really willing to also invest in this hobby, and this brings the lifetime value up. But that also means everybody's trying to target this audience. That means the competition is going up. This drives the CPI up. So if everybody tries to buy these users, they're bidding against each other, they're bidding each other up. So that means when you try to target them as well, you cannot compete when you have a lifetime value of an ad monetized game. So this is completely unsustainable for ad monetized game. That means the game must reach an audience outside of the core gamer audience. And that's why you need to pick a theme that works for everyone. So that's why you should do cars and sports and lifestyle instead of zombies or orcs or magicians, right? That's the explanation behind it. Then let's take a look at what you should do during the development phase. First of all, making big changes is super, super critical. So if you have started developing, you have definitely seen this pattern before. So you have a game concept, right? You test it and you get a quite shitty day one retention. Let's say it's around 21%. You all know these games don't really work usually on the market. And then you start adding a feature, and then maybe you increase it a little bit to 23%. Then you start adding more content, more levels, more variations of game objects, enemies, or whatever. And there's no big movement. Then you add a skin system and a shop system on top. And now, like, maybe you increase the whole day one retention a little bit by a couple of percent. So this is the common pattern that we are seeing a lot, that we also have experienced a lot, and that everybody in the industry knows. And now you have spent weeks, if not months, on the game, and in the end, it's just dead, right? So there's you have to kill it. It's just not feasible in the market. So what I can just advise you, what is a much better pattern, is to try a new concept really quickly. So if you see, okay, it's not really there when you're in this like really low area of retention, just come up with a new concept, start from scratch, and then really try to iterate until you find something that sticks from the beginning, right? So when you have a new concept, when you have a good concept, you will see quite quickly if this is resonating with players. So it doesn't really make sense to add features on top of features on top of features and then content and skins or whatever on something that doesn't work. Don't try to fix something that's unfixable, right? So better like come up with something new, rewrite the concept, start from scratch, maybe even start a whole new Unity project. And then when you see it works, then you can add more content, you can balance the levels, and then you can even launch it before it's ready, and then add the rest of the content during the launch. Then it's really about being quick about making those changes, pumping it out, and then when the game is already working on the market, then you can still optimize it later and really polish it how you want. That's for some developers, I think this is a really obvious trick, but I have experienced also that a lot of people are not used to working with version control. So it's really important that as soon as you have something that's working and stable and that's good, then you can start optimizing, right? Through variations, through themes, through colors, camera, level design, obstacles, and so on. But you have to realize some of those changes won't work and they won't improve your game. So you always need a good stable basis that you can go back to, right? And that's where something like versioning system like Git comes in. And I also highly recommend to just use Git and don't use anything else. All the versioning systems out there suck, but still Git is the best option that you have, right? So it's a bit difficult to get into. It can be intimidating if you're a junior developer, but it will pay off in the long run, especially when you're working together with a team, and also especially when you're working together with the developer, with the publisher. But I will come back to this later. So just learn Git, learn the basic branching system, learn how tags work, have a good, stable main branch. And then if you plan a new feature, a new system, branch off of this and try it out in this branch first. If it doesn't work, you can always go back to the initial version that you had. All right, so now you launch your game. It really works. You have a hit. What should you do next? Of course, just enjoy the moment, celebrate. That's a very great thing that you have achieved. But of course, the work doesn't stop here, right? Now you need to optimize your game. You need to push the LTV up together with your publisher, right? They can provide you the data that you really need to make your game even better. And this is also like where the expectation from the publisher comes in. You need a good, stable system now. You need a stable environment. So if you're now fucking up your game and you're making mistakes and you're introducing bugs, it's not costing you money, it's also costing the publisher money. So now you need to switch into a different mode, really. You need to be careful about your changes. And it's really about slowly iterating, making slow improvements, and really testing them if they're actually better than your original game. And also this involves that you often need to roll back like to initial version, which was better than the changed version. So again, Git comes in here super, super important, and also like tagging your versions to be able to always go back. But mostly more than you're winning, you will mostly have this experience that you're failing, right? So let's talk a little bit more about this, because I think this is the much more important step that where many studios can improve. And the first thing that you should do is adapt a mindset that you should try to learn out of every failure, right? I think the worst thing that you can do is just move on to the next project, learn nothing from it, and just continue what you did before. But what I really recommend is sitting down with your team, analyzing your gameplay and your videos, and see what you can learn with it. And we have split this up in 3 different categories: gameplay, readability, camera, and theme and toy or character. And this is a lot of text on here. Just take a screenshot and go through it together with your team. I won't go through it now one by one, but in the gameplay readability, you should really focus on, is the gameplay understandable in the ad that you're showing, right? So, for example, there's this famous test in there. You should squint your eyes, and you should still be able to understand the gameplay that's being shown in the ad. Otherwise, there's something off with your colors, probably. And it should be super obvious what you need to do in the game. What are the rules? What are the mechanics? How do I control it? Then in the camera section, the super easy change that you can do to every game is just switching the camera around, placing it behind the player, a little bit above the player from the side, right? So there you need to make sure that you have gone through several iterations and found the optimal version that works best for your game. If not, it's super easy to still do this. And for theme and toy, it's also important that you try different themes, right? So maybe you have a theme from the beginning, in the start, but then something else might work a lot better, something that's currently trending on social media, or maybe your theme that you used that was too niche or too unusual, it was a little bit too weird, people couldn't relate to it. Something that I mentioned before, right? Trying to reach the right audience with your theme, but also trying out different characters, right? Maybe you have a super male character, a super female character, and then also like what toy situations do you show in the video creative that you're testing, right? Do you show a winning situation, a satisfying situation, or do you show a fail situation? So playing a little bit around with what is actually the fun experience of that you're showing in your game, and what you're trying to converse to your potential player. And then gather all those things, all those issues that you learned, that you analyzed together with your team, and define clear actions, what you should do for the next project and what you shouldn't do anymore. And this, share it with everybody on the team. Make the teams really responsible for this, that they share their mistakes. This shouldn't be something like putting them to shame, but it should really be, hey, we are able to generate a lot of things from a failed project. So this leads us also to the next point. There's a lot of value in a game, in a project, and the first value is also in the art assets that have been put in, right? So what we are doing here, every time we kill a project, we go through it, we just spend a couple of hours on it, and we try to extract all the different assets that we have in there that we custom made for this game. And we just copy them into a big Unity project. We arrange them by scenes. So next time an artist needs some kind of model or some kind of prop, they can just copy it over from this big art asset library. And it's like super nice archive there, super accessible, super easy to visually see what's already there, and everybody can contribute to it. So this is something I can highly recommend. And this also leads me to the last point. You can do the same thing on the code side, actually, right? So let's say you tried a runner, it didn't work out. Then what you can do is you can strip it all of all the different themes, of all the different colors, right? That's the bare minimum project. And then you can use this as a base for your next project, as a template, so to say. You keep it super abstract, and then you can build on top of that. Or let's say you design some cool obstacles in this runner, some kind of, rotating sword that's trying to hit you. You can save this as prefab for your next project, maybe, if you think it's really cool. Or if you developed a complex system, like a resource management system for an arcade title, right? You might use this for your next title as well, or in a completely different context whenever you're working with resources again. Just try to make a library out of this that every web developer can then access later. Save it into your Git repository so that everybody can exit this from there and share it with your team. All right. These are the super handy tips I want to share with you. Like I mentioned, I hope there was something in there for everybody. If you have any questions, I'm super happy now to answer those. Also, we have many job positions still open here at Sunday. And if you want to work with us on the publishing side, just write us an email. We are super happy to answer, and we'll get back to you super quickly. All right. It's been fun, and thank you very much.
So, Chris, thank you very much for this amazing speech and collection of that very much useful tips. Thank you. As a moderator, I want to ask the first question before the community. You had an amazing slide number 5. Learn as much as you can from your failure. I would appreciate if you could provide some more detailed examples. It seems like this tip is pretty huge. I would appreciate some examples to understand it better.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of text on there, and there could be a whole presentation just about this slide, I think. But I think the biggest part is we are an industry where you fail a lot, and we should use like all the learnings that we take from there. And so the biggest thing that I always see when we look at failed CTR test, marketability test, and look at the videos, analyze the videos, is that the biggest part is gameplay readability. Oftentimes when the game is just too complex and people don't get it in the first 3 seconds they're out, right? It's super important that the player immediately understands the rules and how they can influence the character or the mechanic in the game to actually win or to fail. So understanding the different obstacles, the mechanics, right? And a lot of game ideas are really cool in terms of innovative, and they might be super engaging for someone who's willing to do a deep dive into these mechanics and spend half an hour learning them. But we have to build something that works in 3 seconds, that people understand in 3 seconds. I think this is the most important part, because that's also just how the ads work, right? When you watch a video on TikTok, in the first 3 seconds, you're either convinced or you just swipe to the next one, right? People are out immediately. Same as when you watch an interstitial in another game, right? After 5 seconds, you can skip it. So this is the amount of time that you have to explain the game to your player and understand, and they make them explain how they will feel playing this and why they should do it and how they can have fun with it. That's the most important aspect, I think. And the other ones, I think, camera and theme and toy, these are mostly technical things that you can do in Unity. Unity, camera is super easy, switchable. Just try out different variations, give it to people, and see what they like best. And for theme and toy, it's changing the character and changing the environment, but it's also like what situation you are showing. Like, is it a fun situation? Is it a frustrating situation? So what we have learned is that frustrating ads that show the virtual player as a failure, these work really well, because this creates this feeling in the player, oh, I can do this better, just give it to me, let me try it out, I can do much better than this stupid person who is controlling the character in the ad. So this works really well at like playing around with these situations.
Very cool, thank you. Especially an example to see the hyper-casual game as a TikTok for games, when you have 3 seconds before the swipe to the next one. We have one more question. Can you explain a bit about the ideation methods you use? Where do you take your inspiration and ideas?
Yes, sure. I think when you look at the like these 4 quadrants that I drew on there, these all relate to different ideation methods. And I think like this gold mine ideation, this is something like you look what's already currently popping up on the charts, and you try to find a twist on it, right? So that's also the example that I used a lot, right? So the female runner, and then many other studios came up and put a switch on it, like another twist and another twist, and it was still in the same category of female runner, but 30% changed, right? And then the other one is like these real moonshot ones. Then this is like combining 2 very different things, both things that worked before and that are popular, or that were popular 1 or 2 years ago, and just trying to put them together in a way and make them fit. And these also like need many attempts. It's not as easy as like digging a gold mine, because you really need to find a fit that it doesn't feel awkward and it doesn't feel forced. So like maybe 1 out of 20 combinations, that is what really works. But it's a very analytical approach, right? So it's not this like sitting alone on the mountaintop and thinking of the next fun thing. It's really like taking 2 different categories and trying to create something completely new from it. And this is the 2 most important ways of ideation that I think a studio can go about.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Okay, the next question. What methods would you use to identify what exactly failed in the game?
What methods? Like in regards of KPIs, I mean, of course, you look at the in KPIs, you look at the click-through rate, you look at values like IPM, how many people install the game actually, and when this is below a certain threshold, for example, for us, the threshold is below 5% CTR, that's our bare minimum, then we start looking, okay, what might have caused this? And then we go through these different aspects, like the list that I showed there in the slide. We try to check each of them, what might be the problem there? Why is the game not readable? And really try to think ourselves, if we are the person seeing this ad for the first time, why would we not understand it? Or even show it to someone else, right, who has never seen it before, and ask them like, hey, what do you think about this? Do you understand what's going on there? Why don't you understand it, right? So you really have to sit down and analyze yourself. There's no metric telling you why it didn't work. This is like really a lot of manual effort.
Thank you so much. It seems like we're running out of time, but we have more questions in chat. I would appreciate if you could answer them in a text format. People really generate good questions. Thank you, Chris, for
all
joining
right. I will
us.
try. I'll do my best.
Thank you so much. It was awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See ya.